7,000. That is not a typo. That is not an exaggeration. Serious. 7,000 military targets linked to Iran have already been destroyed, and by the time you finish watching this, that number will be higher. While most of the world was sleeping, American AH-64 Apache attack helicopters have been quietly turning the Strait of Hormuz into the single most dangerous place on Earth for anything flying an Iranian flag. They are not patrolling, they are hunting, and they have not missed yet. Intense. Every drone Iran sends into that airspace gets torn apart before it even gets close to its target. This is not a small operation. This is not some limited response buried in the back of a Pentagon briefing. What the United States has put together over the Strait of Hormuz is a full-scale, around-the-clock aerial dominance campaign, and the numbers tell the story better than anything else. To date, American forces have struck more than 7,000 targets tied to Iran and its military infrastructure. That is not a gradual escalation. That is overwhelming force delivered with surgical precision, and it is happening every single day with increasing intensity. Each day brings a larger strike package than the one before. American capabilities are building while Iran's are falling apart. That is the reality on the ground and in the sky right now. And today, we are going to walk through every detail of how this operation works, from the ground crews sweating in the desert heat to the pilots pulling triggers over open water, because this is one of the most significant military operations happening anywhere in the world, and most people have no idea just how massive it really is. It all starts at an American military installation in the United Arab Emirates. This base is not some quiet outpost. It is the beating heart of the entire Apache operation over the Strait of Hormuz. The activity here never stops. Day and night, ground crews are working on AH-64 Apache attack helicopters, refueling them, rearming them, running diagnostics, and sending them right back out. The pace is relentless because the mission demands it. Iranian-made Shahed drones have been launching attacks against American bases in the region, against Allied military positions, and against commercial oil tankers trying to transit through the strait. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important shipping lanes on the planet. Roughly 20% of the world's oil passes through that narrow corridor of water every single day. If Iran could shut it down or make it too dangerous for tankers to pass, the global economy would feel it immediately. Gas prices would spike, markets would panic, supply chains that are already stretched thin would snap. That is exactly what Iran has been trying to do with its drone campaign, and that is exactly what the United States is making sure does not happen. The Apaches are the tip of the spear in this fight. After the ground crews finish their work at the UAE base, the helicopters lift off and head in two directions. Some fly directly to naval vessels stationed in the Persian Gulf, where they land on flight decks and sit on standby, engines cold but crews ready to scramble at a moment's notice. Others skip the ships entirely and fly straight into the Strait of Hormuz to begin active patrol. They fly patterns over the water, scanning for threats, ready to engage anything hostile that appears on their sensors. The rotation is constant and deliberate. Helicopters heading out to patrol, helicopters coming back to rearm, helicopters sitting on the decks of warships waiting. There is never a gap. There is never a window where the strait is uncovered. The United States has made absolutely certain that at any given moment there is an Apache either in the air over the strait or seconds away from being in the air, and that is by design. When Iranian drones launch and begin heading toward targets in the waterway, the detection chain kicks in fast. The first alert usually comes from the naval vessels. Deep inside the hull of these warships, radar operators sit in the Combat Information Center, watching their screens around the clock. When a new contact appears, they classify it. If it reads as hostile, and in this environment it almost always does, they relay that data immediately. The information goes to the Apache crews, whether they are sitting on the flight deck or already airborne in the patrol zone. The order goes out fast, and the response is even faster. If a crew is on standby aboard the ship, they start their engines and lift off within minutes. The rotor spins up, the helicopter clears the deck, and it climbs hard, turning toward the threat. If a crew is already flying patrol, they simply adjust course and close in on the target. Either way, the engagement happens quickly. The Apaches move toward the incoming drones. The pilots acquire the targets using the helicopter's powerful onboard sensor suite, and they open fire. The drones go down. This has been happening again and again, day after day, and Iran has not been able to find an answer for it. Every wave of drones they send gets intercepted. Every attempt to disrupt shipping or strike at Allied positions gets shut down before it reaches its target. The Apache is simply too fast, too well armed, and too well supported for Iran's drone fleet to get through. And to understand why that is the case, you need to understand what makes this helicopter one of the most feared weapon systems ever put into the sky. The AH-64 Apache is not just a helicopter. It is a flying weapons platform designed from the ground up to destroy targets in the most demanding combat environments imaginable. It was originally built to take on Soviet tank columns during the Cold War, and it has evolved into something far more versatile over the decades. The variant being used in the Strait of Hormuz today carries a staggering amount of firepower. Let us start with the Hydra 70 unguided rockets. Each Apache carries up to 4 19-round rocket pods mounted on its stub-wing pylons. That is 76 rockets per helicopter. These are not precision-guided munitions. They are area-effect weapons designed to saturate a target zone with explosive force. When a pilot fires a salvo of Hydra 70s, the rockets streak out in rapid succession and blanket the area ahead. Against a swarm of incoming drones, this kind of volume fire is devastating. You do not need pinpoint accuracy when you are putting that many explosives into a tight airspace. The rockets are loaded into their pods on the ground, each one inspected individually before the pod is sealed and slid onto the wing pylon. Then there is the M230 chain gun mounted underneath the nose of the aircraft. This is a 30mm automatic cannon fed by an ammunition drum packed with high-explosive dual-purpose rounds. This gun is lethal at close range, and it is what the pilots use when they need to shred a drone that has gotten within visual distance. The chain gun is slave to the pilot's helmet-mounted display, meaning wherever the pilot looks, the gun follows. It is an incredibly intuitive system that allows for rapid target acquisition and engagement. When the ammunition drum runs dry after a mission, the ground crew refills it with a fresh belt, and the helicopter is ready to go again. And then there are the AGM-114 Hellfire missiles. These are laser-guided precision munitions originally designed to destroy tanks and armored vehicles. Each missile is mounted onto a rail launcher on the Apache's stub wings. The electrical connectors are plugged in, the mounting is secured, and the missile is ready to fire. When a pilot locks onto a target with the laser designator, the Hellfire rides the beam all the way in with devastating accuracy. These missiles can take out hardened bunkers, armored vehicles, and large targets at significant range. Against a drone, a Hellfire is overkill, but when the situation calls for a guaranteed kill on a high-value target, there is nothing better. The combination of these three weapon systems makes the Apache one of the most versatile combat aircraft in the world. It can engage targets at long range with Hellfires, at medium range with rockets, and at close range with the chain gun. There is no distance at which this helicopter is not dangerous, and that is exactly what makes it the perfect platform for this mission. Now, if you are finding this breakdown valuable, do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We cover these kinds of critical military developments every single week, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Also smash that like button because it helps more Americans see this story, and trust me, this is one people need to hear. But firepower is only part of the equation. What truly makes this operation work is the logistics behind it, and that part of the story is just as impressive as the combat itself. Every time an Apache returns from a mission, whether it lands back at the UAE base or touches down on the deck of a warship, the turnaround process begins immediately. Ground crews swarm the aircraft. The Hydra 70 rocket pods are pulled off, inspected, reloaded with fresh rockets, and mounted back onto the pylons. The chain gun ammunition drum is opened up and refilled with a new belt of 30mm rounds. The Hellfire missiles that were expended are replaced with fresh ones from the armory. The fuel tanks are topped off. The maintenance team runs through the aircraft's systems, checking hydraulics, electrical connections, flight controls, engines, and avionics. If anything is out of spec, it gets fixed right there on the spot. The goal is to get that helicopter back in the air as fast as physically possible, because every minute it spends on the ground is a minute the Strait has one less Apache covering it. This kind of sustained operational tempo is something that very few militaries on Earth can maintain. It requires enormous quantities of ammunition, fuel, spare parts, and trained personnel. It requires a supply chain that stretches back thousands of miles to depots and factories in the United States, and it requires the kind of institutional experience that only comes from decades of operating in contested environments around the world. The United States military has all of that, and it is applying every bit of it to this mission, and the commitment does not stop at keeping existing helicopters in the fight. The military is also actively pushing replacement aircraft into the theater to make sure that the total number of Apaches available never drops. This is where the C-17 Globemaster comes into the picture. The C-17 is one of the largest transport aircraft in the American fleet. It can carry enormous payloads across intercontinental distances, and it has been landing at desert airstrips in the region carrying a very specific cargo, brand new AH-64 Apaches. Transporting a fully assembled attack helicopter inside a cargo plane is not simple. The Apache has to be partially disassembled before it can fit inside the C-17's cargo bay. The main rotor blades are removed. The tail rotor assembly is detached. The stub wings and weapons pylons are taken off. Avionics fairings are stripped away. All of these components are packed into crates and containers that travel alongside the helicopter inside the aircraft. Cases of Hydra 70 rockets and Hellfire missiles are loaded in as well. Everything the ground crew will need to put the helicopter back together and arm it for combat is on that plane. When the C-17 lands and taxis to the unloading zone, the process of getting that Apache combat ready begins immediately. Soldiers and ground crew pull the crates off first, carrying and rolling them down the ramp by hand and by cart. Then the helicopter itself is brought out of the cargo bay. Without its rotor blades and with its landing gear unlocked for transport, the Apache is rolled down the ramp manually. It takes a large team working carefully to maneuver the airframe off the aircraft and onto the tarmac without damaging any of the sensitive sensors, weapons systems, or structural components. Once the Apache is on the ground, it is hooked up to a military tow vehicle. The crates of parts and ammunition are loaded onto a flatbed, and the whole convoy moves across the airstrip to the assembly area. That is where the real work begins. The mechanics descend on the helicopter with purpose. The main rotor blades are brought out of their crates and attached to the rotor hub, each one carefully secured and the bolts torqued to specification. The tail rotor is mounted back onto the tail boom and the drive shaft is connected to the transmission. The stub wings are bolted onto the fuselage, and the weapons pylons are installed on the wing hardpoints. Avionics panels that were removed for transport are reconnected, and every system is tested to make sure the connections are solid. Then the arming process begins, just like it does for every other Apache in the fleet. Rockets are loaded into the pods. Hellfire missiles are slid onto the rail launchers and plugged in. The chain gun ammunition drum is filled. The mechanics run through the complete pre-flight checklist, covering every system on the aircraft: hydraulics, electrical, flight controls, engine performance, weapon systems, sensor calibration, communication links. Every single item has to check out clean before that Apache is cleared for its first flight in the theater. Once it passes, it joins the rotation, and the coverage over the Strait of Hormuz gets even stronger. This is the part that should worry Iran more than anything else. It is not just that the United States is defending the strait. It is that the American military is actively building its capacity in the region with every passing day. More helicopters, more ammunition, more ground crews, more ship-based platforms. The force that was there yesterday is smaller than the force that is there today, and tomorrow's force will be larger still. Iran's capabilities, on the other hand, are moving in the opposite direction. Every drone that gets shot down is a drone that has to be replaced. Every launch site that gets struck is a facility that has to be rebuilt. Every piece of military infrastructure that American forces have destroyed over the course of this campaign is a piece that Iran cannot easily reconstitute. The math is brutal, and it is not in Iran's favor. 7,000 targets struck and counting. The Apaches are not just defending the strait, they are systematically degrading Iran's ability to threaten it. Meanwhile, life on the warships in the Persian Gulf continues at a wartime pace. The combat information centers aboard these vessels are staffed around the clock by radar operators who never take their eyes off the screens. When a new threat appears, the sequence is automatic: detect, classify, relay, scramble. The alarm sounds, and an Apache sitting on the flight deck spins up its engines. The rotor accelerates to operating speed and the helicopter lifts off, climbing fast and turning toward the incoming contacts. The pilot uses the onboard targeting systems to acquire the drones, lines up the weapons, and fires. The drones are destroyed before they can reach their intended targets. The pilot confirms the engagement, reports back to the ship, and the information flows up the chain to the command center. Target destroyed. Mission confirmed. Then the Apache circles back to its patrol station and waits. It waits because another wave will come. They always do, and when it does, the helicopter will be ready. The crew will be ready. The weapons will be loaded, the fuel will be topped off, and the result will be the same. This is what persistent air dominance looks like. It is not dramatic in the way a single massive airstrike is dramatic. It is grinding. It is relentless. It is the kind of sustained military pressure that wears an adversary down day after day after day until they have nothing left to throw at you. The Strait of Hormuz has been a flashpoint for decades. Iran has long threatened to close it, to mine it, to make it impassable for Western shipping. That threat carried real weight for a long time because the geography favors the defender. The strait is narrow, the waters are confined, and Iran's coastline sits right along the edge of it. But geography only matters if you have the capability to exploit it, and right now, Iran's capability to do anything meaningful in the Strait of Hormuz is evaporating. The Apache helicopters are making sure of that. Every drone that launches gets intercepted. Every attempt to disrupt shipping gets neutralized. The oil tankers continue to transit. The Allied vessels continue to operate. The shipping lanes remain open. And every day, the American military grows stronger in the region while Iran grows weaker. That is the situation as it stands right now. The operation over the Strait of Hormuz is not winding down. It is ramping up. The next strike package will be the largest yet, just as today's was larger than yesterday's. The ground crews at the UAE base are working through the night, rearming and refueling helicopters that will be back in the air before dawn. Replacement Apaches are being flown in aboard C-17 transports to ensure full coverage at all times. The radar screens on the warships are glowing with contacts being tracked and classified in real time. This is the American military operating at full capacity in a sustained combat environment, and it is a sight that Iran has no counter for. The message is clear, and it is being delivered not with words, but with actions. Every destroyed drone, every struck target, every Apache that lifts off from a ship deck or a desert airstrip is sending the same signal. The Strait of Hormuz is open for business, and it is going to stay that way. Iran bet that its drone campaign could change the calculus in the Persian Gulf. It bet that swarming the skies with cheap, expendable Shahed drones could overwhelm American defenses and force a retreat, or at least a pause. That bet has failed spectacularly. The Apaches are not overwhelmed. They are not even close to being overwhelmed. They are chewing through every wave that comes at them, and the supply of ammunition and aircraft keeps flowing in behind them. The logistics machine feeding this operation is as powerful as the helicopters themselves. You can have the best weapon system in the world, but if you cannot keep it armed, fueled, and flying, it does not matter. The United States can, and it is proving that every single day. Now let us talk about what this means for the bigger picture, because the Strait of Hormuz is not just a military story. It is an economic story. It is an energy story. It is a story that touches every single American who fills up their car at a gas station or pays a heating bill in the winter. When Iran started launching drones at the Strait, energy markets reacted immediately. Oil futures ticked upward. Analysts started running worst-case scenarios about what would happen if tanker traffic was disrupted for even a few days. Insurance premiums for vessels transiting the Gulf skyrocketed. Shipping companies started rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope, adding weeks to delivery times and millions of dollars in fuel costs. The ripple effects were real, and they were being felt from Wall Street to Main Street. But then the Apache operation kicked into full gear, and something interesting happened. The markets stabilized. Insurance premiums started coming back down. Tanker traffic through the strait returned to near-normal levels, not because the threat disappeared, but because the American military demonstrated, in real time, day after day, that it had the capability and the will to keep the strait open no matter what Iran threw at it. That kind of demonstrated commitment matters enormously in the world of global shipping and energy markets. It is one thing to say you will protect a waterway. It is another thing entirely to show it, every single day, with Apache helicopters flying overhead and destroyed drones splashing into the water below. The shipping companies noticed, the insurance underwriters noticed, the oil traders noticed, and most importantly, Iran noticed. There is also a technological dimension to this that deserves attention. The Shahed drones that Iran has been launching are not sophisticated aircraft. They are essentially flying bombs, slow-moving, low-altitude, and relatively easy to detect on radar. Their advantage is supposed to be numbers. The strategy is to launch enough of them at once to overwhelm defenses, to saturate the airspace with so many targets that some inevitably get through. Against many air defense systems, that strategy can work. Numbers have a quality all their own, as the old military saying goes. But against the Apache, the math does not work the way Iran expected. The AH-64 is designed to operate in exactly this kind of environment. It was built to engage multiple targets in rapid succession. The sensor suite can track several threats simultaneously. The pilot and the co-pilot gunner work as a team, one flying the aircraft while the other manages weapons and targeting. The chain gun can pivot quickly from one target to the next. The rockets can saturate an area in seconds. And if a high-value or more resilient target appears, the Hellfire missiles provide a guaranteed kill. The helicopter can loiter over the patrol zone for extended periods, waiting for threats to materialize, and when they do, the engagement is fast and decisive. Iran's drone swarm tactics simply cannot overcome this combination of firepower, sensor capability, and endurance. And here is the other thing about the Shahed drones that Iran probably did not fully account for. Every drone costs money. The components have to be manufactured or imported. The guidance systems have to be assembled. The warheads have to be produced. And in the current environment, with international sanctions squeezing Iran's economy and its supply chains under pressure, replacing those drones is not a trivial task. The United States, on the other hand, has deep reserves of ammunition, a robust defense industrial base, and the logistical infrastructure to keep supplies flowing into the theater indefinitely. This is a war of attrition that Iran simply cannot win. The cost-exchange ratio is brutal. Iran spends resources building and launching drones. The United States spends resources destroying them. But America's resources are deeper, its supply chains are more resilient, and its military-industrial capacity is in a completely different league. Every week that this goes on, the disparity grows. Iran burns through its stockpiles while America keeps its pipeline full. That is not a sustainable position for Iran, and every military planner in Tehran knows it. If you have made it this far into the video, you clearly care about what is happening with American forces overseas, and I respect that. Drop a comment below telling me what you think Iran's next move is going to be. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. We are just getting started covering this story. So where does this go from here? That is the question everyone is asking. The honest answer is that as long as Iran continues to launch drones at the Strait, the United States will continue to shoot them down. There is no off switch for this operation short of Iran deciding to stop. And right now, there is no indication that is happening. So the Apaches will keep flying. The ground crews will keep working, the radar operators will keep watching, and the drones will keep falling out of the sky. This is not the kind of story that ends with a dramatic climax. It is the kind of story that ends with one side simply running out of options. And right now, that side is Iran. The American military is not going anywhere. The helicopters are not going anywhere. The ships are not going anywhere. And every single day that this operation continues, Iran's position gets a little bit weaker, and America's gets a little bit stronger. That is the reality of what is happening over the Strait of Hormuz right now, and it is something every American should understand because this operation is being conducted by the men and women of the United States Armed Forces who are flying these missions, turning the wrenches, loading the rockets, and standing watch in the middle of the night so that the global economy keeps moving and American interests stay protected. They are doing an extraordinary job under extraordinary circumstances, and the results speak for themselves. 7,000 targets struck, countless drones destroyed. The strait remains open. The mission continues.